got barbecue back there, and you didn't invite me. Hurt my feelings.
What's going on, guys? It's your boy Jay Rich back for another video over here on DDFFB. Make sure you like and subscribe for all the content we put out almost each and every single day. But today we're diving into Mel Kiper Jr.'s latest mock draft, and we're talking about all of the fantasy relevant players, how they fit into their respective offenses, and what it could mean for where you would draft them in rookie drafts, because we know that landing spot matters, draft capital matters, and it will impact how you want to draft these players in their rookie draft. So let's dive into Mel's latest mock right now. Starting off at number 1, we have the Tennessee Titans selecting Cam Ward, the quarterback out of Miami. Extremely experienced, very talented, and seems to be the preferred option right now. The question will be, is where would you take him in a Superflex league? A lot of people are still the Ashton Jeanty 101 no matter what. But if Cam Ward does hit and can provide that top 10, top 12 quarterback value, he would have some value in some Superflex leagues. So I wouldn't necessarily stay away from drafting him potentially 101, but I would definitely consider him, in that top 5, top 6, because when he plays, and if he does look good, he will gain value. He's probably not going to be a guy who gets into that top 8, top 6 range, but he can definitely be a guy who maybe in a couple of years, with some pieces building around him in Tennessee, a better offensive line, and under Brian Callahan, provide that top 10 to top 12 value. At 2, we have probably the most polarizing prospect when it comes to how much offense is he going to play? Travis Hunter going to the Cleveland Browns. They choose to pass on quarterback, and they take Travis Hunter, who even in Cleveland, we kind of expect to play full-time cornerback, or at least very close to it, with part-time wide receiver roles. Where do you draft that in fantasy football is a complete mystery. And I think the reality is that Travis Hunter has a phenomenal skill set, has extremely high upside at receiver, but it's so difficult to predict how much receiver he's going to play, and then where do you draft that in fantasy football? I have him firmly entrenched in my tier 1. I'd probably draft him in the top 7 or 8 of a rookie draft, but not everyone feels that way, and some people think he could be even higher than that. Some people have him as their wide receiver 1, and I think if he was a full-time receiver, he's definitely in that wide receiver 1 range, but the problem is that if he's not playing full-time receiver and you can't really project a volume for him, it becomes so much more difficult to figure out how do you value this guy for fantasy football. But at number 2 overall, Travis Hunter would be a phenomenal pick for the Cleveland Browns. I think he can slot into that offense pretty quickly, but they will definitely still need to address the quarterback position, because we know Deshaun Watson is not a long-term answer in Cleveland. At number 3, we have our second quarterback off the board in Shedeur Sanders going to the New York Giants. I really love this fit personally. I think Brian Daboll getting a quarterback like Shedeur who can get the ball to his receivers accurately on time and has played in a hell of chaos in terms of his offensive line at Colorado will be very interesting. Now, what does Sanders provide in terms of fantasy upside? Again, much like Cam Ward and even to a lesser degree, top 10, top 12 upside at quarterback, especially depending on how this team performs. But he does have Malik Neighbors. He does have Wan'Dale Robinson. There are pieces around him, a running game with Tyrone Tracy, and however they want to try to bolster that throughout the offseason, they will have to improve the offensive line. But I do like Sanders in this spot. I wouldn't hesitate to draft him in the top 7 or 8 as well in the Superflex League. And even if you want to go as high as top 3 or top 4, I can't really knock you for it, because I do think that New York, while it seems bad right now, if Shedeur Sanders is truly a floor raiser and can be a competent quarterback for the Giants, we have seen stretches where Daniel Jones has been very usable in New York under Brian Daboll, and if Shedeur Sanders can be a better, more accurate version of that, there could be some fantasy upside in New York for not just Shedeur Sanders, but especially for Malik Neighbors. Now we scroll down to number 6, where we have the Las Vegas Raiders selecting Tetaiora McMillan, the wide receiver out of Arizona. Big-bodied outside threat, could work very well with Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers in Las Vegas. But the biggest question are head coach, OC, and quarterback ultimately. And I think that's one of the big problems when you talk about any player going to the Raiders at this point. We were hopeful for Ben Johnson. He's going to be in Chicago now. And now the Raiders are trying to figure out not just what they do at head coach, but quarterback could be an issue as well. Mel Kiper, the one and only, has Cam Ward going number 1 and Shedeur Sanders going number 3. So without a potential trade up or a signing of maybe a Sam Darnold or a lesser quarterback, we are probably rolling it back with Aiden O'Connell once again. And I don't think that bodes very well for Tetaiora McMillan's fantasy upside. Now, he was great at getting the ball to Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers, but at that point, you'd have three receivers that are all capable of doing fairly well. And with this 6th overall draft capital, he's going to be on the field, but I'd be curious how people would value him, especially in dynasty leagues. I think when it comes down to it, there's better spots for a receiver to land, and I wouldn't be shocked if he's not the wide receiver 1 in rookie drafts and he gets drafted kind of in that 5 to 8 range, because the Raiders just isn't a good landing spot without some significant improvements around this team. Offensively, they have a decent roster with McMillan, but I think there's a lot of things still to figure out, and I think fantasy managers will be very weary of drafting him, me included, because there's definitely going to be some better spots down the board. Now, at 12, this shouldn't be a surprise to a lot of people, and I think it starts the conversation of having Luther Burton going number 12 to the Dallas Cowboys versus Tetaiora McMillan at number 6 to the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't think anyone would disagree. The Dallas Cowboys is a much better situation, much better quarterback. We don't know who the head coach is going to be right now, but it could be their current offensive coordinator in Brian Schottenheimer, which offensively wouldn't be much of an issue. We know CeeDee Lamb is there. We know Dak Prescott is there. We know they have little to no running game as it stands right now, but adding a dynamic playmaker like Luther Burton could make this offense very, very good. And much like when CeeDee Lamb was a rookie, I think Burton as well could provide a spark to the offense and wouldn't be completely nullified by CeeDee Lamb's presence. Both of them can coexist and operate in this offense. There's enough passes to go around. They desperately need a wide receiver 2, a playmaker next to CeeDee Lamb, and I think having both these players will elevate the offense. And in my opinion, when you're comparing both McMillan on the Raiders and Luther Burton on the Dallas Cowboys, Luther Burton would easily be my wide receiver 1 in rookie drafts, because it's just a much better spot, much better offense, and especially much better quarterback play. So far through the draft, I would have Luther Burton over Tetaiora McMillan as it stands, and I don't think that's going to change much, because Burton in Dallas is just about as good of a landing spot as you could get for a wide receiver. In rookie drafts, I'd be looking at taking him probably pretty high. He'd be my wide receiver 1 in terms of rankings as it stands through this mock draft. And I'd be willing to take him probably as high as 4 or 5 in a rookie draft, because I do think he could be a true difference maker, wide receiver 2, right out the gate, and I think he'll be a fan favorite in the fantasy football community. Now, this is where things get a little bit more difficult, because Tyler Warren to the Indianapolis Colts at 14 for me is a phenomenal fit. His quarterback, very likely to be Anthony Richardson, Shane Steichen, his head coach and offensive coordinator, and I absolutely love the fit for Tyler Warren. They desperately need a playmaker in Indy exactly like Tyler Warren, and the question is how high would you draft him in a rookie draft? In a Superflex PPR, I've thought about taking him as high as number 8 overall. Now, again, that kind of depends on where the running backs go and how do you feel about their landing spots. But in a lot of ways, this is a tier 1 player, tight end 1, pretty much no matter what. And I think he can be awesome in his rookie season, so I wouldn't even be worried about a slow start in Indy or any concerns there. I think Warren would be a locked and loaded top 10 tight end in 2025 fantasy football, and I'd be drafting him really high, especially if you need a tight end, because I think he can be a difference maker. Love the fit for Warren in Indy. I think he can make an impact instantly in the NFL in his rookie season. So draft him high and pray he goes to Indy, because I think it's a phenomenal fit for Tyler Warren. Now we get to the big dog. Boise State's running back Ashton Jeanty staying a Bronco, and at number 20 heading to Denver. This is a spot that for some people may be a little bit polarizing, because Sean Payton has been very outspoken about wanting to have a committee backfield. But if he gets a running back like Ashton Jeanty, I don't think that's going to be his approach any longer. I still think that there will be a pass catcher, third down back that can be worked in, but Jeanty is a complete running back. We saw it all season, whether it was in the Mountain West or in the college football playoff. He continued to show why he is the top running back in this 2025 NFL draft and will be a first-round pick. And on Denver, I absolutely love it. If there's one thing we can say about Sean Payton, he has done a phenomenal job making his running backs extremely fantasy valuable, especially when it comes to his lead back. He's probably looking at double-digit touchdowns in his rookie season. He'll probably walk into the top 5 in a lot of people's dynasty rankings, maybe even in the top 3 behind Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs. And there's a lot of conversation as to whether or not he would be the 101 regardless of format. In Denver, you could definitely make the case. This offense is ascending. They have Sean Payton, they have Bo Nix, and they add Ashton Jeanty. It's a phenomenal fit, and I couldn't blame you if you took him 101 in your rookie drafts. At 21, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers taking wide receiver Emeka Egbuka out of the Ohio State University, an extremely productive wide receiver once again out of Ohio State. He could have come out last year, probably would have been a second-round pick, stayed back, won a national championship, and now projects to be a first-round wide receiver in the 2025 NFL Draft. We already talked about McMillan and Burton. Egbuka would be interesting because in Pittsburgh, they have a long-standing history of figuring out and producing very productive wide receivers. I expect him to play in the slot every single play for the Pittsburgh Steelers almost immediately. He can play outside. He's a great blocker. He's great after the catch. He's phenomenal over the middle and can provide a spark for this offense that they desperately need, because while they do have George Pickens right now, it's very thin after that, especially at the wide receiver position, and Emeka Egbuka can solve that problem. Now, it doesn't change the fact that their quarterback play as it stands right now is virtually non-existent and very suspect heading into 2025. Mike Tomlin will have to address that, but I think Egbuka would provide an instant spark for this offense and can be a difference maker and have a great rookie season. I think in terms of rookie drafts, he probably falls in that 6 to 12 range. You never want to see a first-round wide receiver fall out of the first round of rookie drafts, but with the running back class that we have right now, he definitely could be a guy that falls down the board a little bit. He hasn't quite been linked to that of Tetaiora, McMillan, and Luther Burton and Travis Hunter in that tier 1 of wide receiver, but he's definitely right there, either in a tier of his own or in that second tier right at the top. So I love Egbuka for what he can do for the Steelers offense, and I think he's easily worth a top 12 pick in rookie drafts. But if he slips any farther than that, I'd be looking to scoop him up, because I always love getting a first-round wide receiver in the second round of a rookie draft. At 22, we have the Los Angeles Chargers taking Michigan tight end Colston Loveland. For fantasy purposes, this is a pretty good spot. We know they need a spark offensively. We know that Loveland is a very talented tight end. I really like him playing for his former coach, because I think it will make his acclimation to the NFL a little bit easier. That familiarity in what he likes to do, the way he coaches, and the way that they want to play offensively will be a little bit more familiar than if he went to any other team. But the upside and kind of what he can be for Herbert is interesting, because you still have Ladd McConkey there. We expect them to upgrade at the wide receiver position because of how bad they were this season. Loveland is a player who can help them not only in the running game by blocking, but also in the passing game as an outlet and down the field for Herbert. So it'd be interesting to see how people value him. First round tight end, so that's great to see, but I wouldn't say he's quite on the level of a Tyler Warren, where I expect him to make a big impact in year one. I would expect him to be drafted somewhere in the range of the early second to maybe mid-second in rookie drafts. Some people may draft him as a first rounder. I personally will not be one of those guys. There's too many running backs that I think will be drafted on day 2 to where I will be prioritizing them over the tight end. He can be a guy who can be a top 12 in his first season, but if he wasn't, I wouldn't be entirely shocked either. Very talented, definitely deserving of the first round NFL draft selection, but I wouldn't be taking him in the first of my rookie drafts. So that concludes our review of the fantasy relevant players in Mel Kiper's first 2025 mock draft. 2 quarterbacks, 1 running back, 4 wide receivers, and 2 tight ends. Let me know who your favorite pick is in the comments and who you would be drafting from the top 4 wide receivers, because I want to know how you guys have them ranked based off these landing spots. Until next time, you can follow me on Twitter at @YourBoyJRich. Make sure you like and subscribe for all of our future content on DDFFB, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm out. Peace.